Welcome back, everybody. We're taking a deep dive into the fascinating world of ancient prediction systems. It's incredible to think that even from the earliest times, humans have always been captivated by the future,
Oh, absolutely.
and they went beyond simple, like, prophecies.
Yeah.
They developed these complex systems, these intricate methods trying to figure out what was coming next.
Like this fundamental human drive to try to make sense of the unknown, Maybe even get a little sense of control over what might happen, right?
Totally. And we're going to cover a whole tapestry of techniques here, from those dusty oracle bones they used in China to how they used to observe comets looking for cryptic messages in ancient Greece and Rome.
Oh, yeah.
Even going to touch on some practices from ancient Egypt and early Christianity. So, like, buckle up, folks. We're going on a wild ride through
Yeah,
history.
that's going to be a fun one.
Our big questions today are, did these systems work, like, at all? How did somebody become a diviner? And what can we learn from, both their successes and their failures?
Oh, those are excellent questions. It's so important to keep in mind that these practices weren't just like isolated rituals.
Yeah.
They were literally woven into these societies, influenced everything.
Mm.
Politics, daily life, everything.
Okay, so let's break this down, starting with ancient China
Yeah.
and this really intriguing practice of oracle bone divination. So imagine you're a ruler in ancient China, right? You've got a big decision, a critical decision,
Right.
and you've got these animal bones specially prepared.
Uh-huh.
Often, it'd be like the shoulder blades of oxen or the bottom shell of a turtle called a plastron, and they'd carve hollows into these bones and then apply intense heat. This would cause cracks to appear. But, and this is where it gets really mysterious, we still don't fully understand how they interpreted those cracks.
It's this puzzle that just keeps scholars coming back.
Yeah.
Keeps them fascinated. We have these incredible records, right? These oracle bones, some of the earliest written texts from China, like way back 1250 BC.
Mm-hmm.
And they give us a glimpse into like their everyday concerns, everything from warfare to harvest.
Yeah.
But the exact method of how they were interpreting the cracks, it's still elusive.
It's like having this cryptic message from the past, and we're still, trying to decipher it, trying to
Yeah.
crack the code.
Totally.
One detail I found really fascinating was their preference for turtle plastrons, especially the ones with a natural symmetry. Makes you wonder if that maybe it reflects a belief in balance,
Oh, yeah.
like the concept of yin and yang that developed later in Chinese thought.
That's a really sharp observation.
Uh-huh.
It does suggest a deeper connection between the actual physical form of the bone and the spiritual meaning they were trying to pull out of it.
Yeah.
And speaking of looking for meaning in the natural world,
Mm.
let's shift our focus from China over to ancient Greece and Rome,
Okay.
where they would look up to the skies, especially at comets, for signs and omens.
Oh, yeah, the comets. I know comets have always had a bit of a reputation for being, the harbingers of doom.
Right.
How did the ancient Greeks and Romans view them, though? Was it all just pure superstition, or was there something more to it?
It was a really fascinating mix of observation, interpretation, and of course, politics.
Right, of course.
Aristotle, for example, he took a more scientific approach.
Yeah.
He theorized that comets were like ignited exhalations that could actually impact weather patterns.
Hmm.
But then, on the other hand, you have like this very strong popular belief that comets, foretold of these major events like the death of Julius Caesar. So it's really interesting to see these contrasting viewpoints kind of coexisting at the same time.
So, like, the same celestial event could be interpreted in these very different ways, depending on who was doing the interpreting and what message they wanted to convey. It's almost like a cosmic PR game.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Yeah.
It speaks to the inherent ambiguity of these signs, and how powerful interpretation could be. Take the example of Augustus. He actually tried to control the astrological predictions.
Hmm.
After multiple comets appeared during his reign, it was probably because he saw them as a threat to his authority. You can just imagine all the political maneuvering happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, you can only imagine. It really highlights this close connection between divination and power. But let's shift gears to another civilization.
Yeah.
Ancient Babylon. They practiced extispicy,
Yeah.
which involved examining the liver of a sacrificed sheep to foretell the future.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, I've got to admit, that one sounds, kind of messy.
Yeah.
It's a bit out there.
It might seem a bit unusual to us,
Yeah.
but to the Babylonians, the liver, it was like a microcosm of the universe, like a reflection of this divine order. What's really remarkable is how they actually developed their system of extispicy. They didn't just rely on random observations.
Right.
They created a theoretical model, almost like a scientific map of the liver,
Wow.
with each section corresponding to different aspects of life and the cosmos.
So they were analyzing data, right, and creating a system based on their observations. That's a very sophisticated approach.
Exactly. They began with specific cases, interpreting real events based on the features of the sheep's liver.
Hmm.
Over time, they extrapolated from those individual cases and developed a complex system of these abstract, these artificial omens based on the liver's, I guess you could say, geography. It's a fascinating parallel to how modern science has evolved, from data collection to these theoretical models. Instead of stars and planets, they were mapping the internal landscape of an animal, trying to understand, how the universe worked.
That's incredible. It shows you that this human desire to understand the future, to find patterns, to find meaning, it's something that transcends cultures and time periods.
Absolutely, yeah. Whether it's cracking bones in China, reading comets in Rome, or studying sheep livers in Babylon, we see this universal urge, to connect with the unknown, to try to get these insights into what lies ahead. It speaks to a very deep-seated need for guidance, for understanding, a world that's full of uncertainty.
Right. But who are the people who actually perform these divinations? Were they just everyday folks, or were they specialized experts? And how did they learn these really intricate systems?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does seem like who got to divination depended a lot on your social standing.
Oh, definitely.
Like in ancient Rome, those high-ranking officials, they were expected to practice augury.
Oh, right, right.
That's divining by watching flight patterns and behavior of birds.
Yeah.
But they could outsource it, so to speak, to specialists.
Yeah.
Kind of like having a personal bird whisperer, on call. Exactly. It's really fascinating how these practices were integrated into the different levels of society, Like in ancient Egypt, the priesthood, they played a really central role.
Yeah.
Not just in leading those religious ceremonies, but also interpreting dreams, and possibly even influencing how the oracles would give their answers.
Wow. So they were like spiritual advisors, scientists, and political consultants all rolled into one.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Th-
It's like a multi-talented, but it makes you wonder about the average person in these societies, Did they have access to a simpler, more accessible form of divination?
Right.
Or were they totally reliant on these elite intermediaries to interpret the signs for them?
It's a great question. While the grand rituals and those elaborate systems, those were definitely often the domain of the elite.
Uh-huh.
There is evidence that there were simpler practices that were woven into the fabric of daily life, like for ordinary people.
Think about common superstitions, charms, or even rituals that had to do with, luck or protection, or even predicting the weather. Those could be seen as echoes of those more accessible forms of divination.
Yeah, it's almost like we have this inherent need as humans to find meaning and patterns, even in those seemingly random events of life.
Right.
But let's maybe shift gears a little bit and talk about the connection between divination and power. It's pretty clear that these practices weren't just about personal guidance, right? They were often deeply connected with politics and social control.
Oh, absolutely. Predictions could be used to legitimize rulers. They could be used to justify going to war, or even just to control the general population. Remember Augustus trying to, regulate those astrologers?
Right, right.
That wasn't just about what he personally believed. It was about keeping things politically stable and preventing any potential challenges to his authority.
So it was as much about shaping public perception and controlling the narrative as it was about actually trying to predict, the future. It makes you wonder how much of it was actual genuine belief, and how much was just calculated manipulation.
It's a blurry line for sure, and it really highlights the importance of critical thinking even when you're dealing with these seemingly mystical practices. Just because a prediction came from a respected oracle,
Yeah.
or a diviner, it didn't necessarily mean that it was, free from political or social influences.
It reminds me of how we consume information today, you know? We have to be so mindful of the source. We have to consider potential biases, whether we're, reading a news article or listening to an expert's opinion. But all this talk about the influence of divination kind of raises the big question, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Did any of these systems actually work? Could they really predict, the future?
That's the million-dollar question. It's one that scholars have been debating for centuries, literally.
Mm.
The problem is we just don't have clear-cut evidence
Right.
to really verify if those ancient claims were accurate or not. Plus, the interpretations, they were often so flexible
Right.
that it makes it very hard to assess, success or failure.
Uh-huh.
What one person might see as like a fulfilled prophecy, somebody else could just dismiss it as a misinterpretation.
Yeah, it's not like we can go back and run a statistical analysis on these predictions.
Right.
But I guess that's kind of part of the mystery, the allure, right?
Yeah.
Of these ancient systems. They give us a window into a very different way of thinking about the world, a time when those boundaries between the natural and the supernatural, they were much more fluid.
Exactly. Yeah. And even when prophecies, they failed,
Yeah.
people found ways to kind of rationalize the outcome.
Right.
They might they might blame a misinterpretation.
Uh-huh.
They might chalk it up to the unknowable will of the gods, or they even might adjust their understanding of the prophecy
Right.
to make it fit with the events that actually happened.
Yeah, so it seems like there's this built-in mechanism to maintain faith in the system, even when they were faced with contradictory evidence. It's a fascinating look at how human psychology and belief systems work.
It really is. And then it also reminds us that, even today, our own beliefs, our own perceptions, those shape how we interpret information, how we see events. Think about how people react to scientific predictions.
Yeah.
We tend to gravitate towards information that kind of confirms our worldview,
Right.
and we dismiss or we downplay evidence that challenges it.
That's a great point. It's like we humans have this knack for finding ways to make the world fit our expectations, even if it means, bending the rules a bit.
Yeah, yeah.
But speaking of the modern world, isn't it amazing how some of these ancient practices have stuck around, albeit in different forms?
Right.
Like, I'll admit, I check my horoscope sometimes.
Sure.
Even though, logically, I know it's probably not scientifically sound.
Yeah, it's totally understandable. Astrology, even though it doesn't really have a scientific basis, it still fascinates so many people.
Yeah.
It taps into that same desire to understand ourselves,
Yeah.
to find our place in the universe, to find meaning and guidance in something bigger than ourselves.
Hmm.
And there are tons of other examples, superstitions about, lucky numbers, black cats knocking on wood.
Right.
Those are all echoes of those ancient ways of thinking, and they're still here. They persist in our modern world.
It's like we just can't escape that primal urge to find patterns, to find meaning, even in a world that often feels so chaotic, so unpredictable.
Yeah, absolutely. And in a way, that need for certainty,
Yeah.
it's evolved alongside our technology.
Right.
Instead of consulting oracles or examining sheep livers,
Yeah.
we now rely on a different class of experts.
Yeah.
Newscasters, scientists, financial advisors. We rely on them to help us navigate this increasingly complex and uncertain future.
Yeah, it's like we've traded the Oracle of Delphi for the Oracle of Wall Street. But it raises a pretty important question, doesn't it? If those ancient systems were often more about interpretation and social control than actual prediction, I mean, does that same thing apply to our modern experts? Are we just looking for a different form of reassurance, even if it might not be entirely objective or reliable?
That's a really good question.
That's a really thought-provoking question. It makes you wonder how much of our trust in modern experts is actually based on real evidence.
Yeah.
How much is influenced by our own biases or like the social pressures around us. It's almost like we're constantly looking for people who can offer us some kind of certainty in a world that often feels well, anything but certain.
Yeah, you've hit on something really important there. It's crucial to be aware of those influences,
Mm.
both in ourselves and in the people we turn to for guidance.
Yeah.
But it's not about like completely dismissing all expertise.
Right.
It's more about cultivating a healthy skepticism,
Mm.
being willing to question assumptions,
Mhm.
and to seek out multiple perspectives.
So it's more about being informed and discerning, right?
Exactly.
Rather than just blindly accepting any one prediction or viewpoint. Which brings us back to one of those core lessons from these ancient systems,
Yeah.
the limits of human knowledge.
Right.
The ancient Egyptians, they had this concept known as Isfet.
Oh yeah.
It represented chaos, like forces beyond our comprehension.
Right.
And they recognize that some things are just they're simply beyond our grasp. It's a humbling thought, and it's something that's still relevant today.
Absolutely. Even with all our technological advancements,
Mhm.
all our scientific understanding, we still run up against those boundaries of knowledge, those areas where prediction is incredibly difficult. Like think about climate change,
Yeah.
economic forecasting, or even trying to predict how a political election is going to turn out. These are complex systems with like countless variables,
Yeah.
and so many of them are beyond our control or even our full understanding.
It's a good reminder that we don't have all the answers, and the future isn't like this fixed destination.
Right.
It's more like a landscape that's constantly being shaped and reshaped by so many factors. Some we know, some we don't. But if we can't really fully predict the future, should we just give in? Just surrender to the chaos, to the uncertainty.
Not necessarily, no.
Yeah.
The ancient Egyptians, alongside their understanding of Isfet, they also believed in Heka.
Okay.
It's a concept that's often translated as magic, but it might be better understood as this ability to influence events through actions, through rituals. It wasn't just about passively accepting fate. It was about actively engaging with the forces that were shaping their world.
So it's not just about reading the signs, right?
Right,
It's
right.
it's also about taking action, making choices, and really shaping the future we want to see.
Exactly. We're not just passengers on this journey. We're active participants, and we have the capacity to influence where it goes, and that's where the true power lies. Not in trying to find a perfect crystal ball.
Yeah.
But in embracing our agency,
Right.
in recognizing that our choices, our actions, they have a real ripple effect.
I really love that perspective. It's empowering, but it's also a little daunting, to be honest. But it reminds us that we're not just, at the mercy of fate. We can make a difference. So maybe instead of trying to predict every little twist and turn, maybe we should focus on making thoughtful decisions and taking actions that align with our values, our aspirations.
Well said. And maybe that's the most valuable thing we can take away from our deep dive into these ancient prediction systems. They weren't just about trying to see into the future. They were understanding where we fit in this grand scheme of things,
Yeah.
recognizing the limits of our knowledge,
Yeah.
and really embracing our ability to shape the world around us.
That's a brilliant insight. It's not about finding the perfect formula to predict the future. It's about cultivating this mindset of informed action, acknowledging the unknown, and just embracing the journey with all its complexities, its possibilities. And hey, if you're ever feeling lost or uncertain, maybe take a page from those ancient cultures, explore different perspectives, connect with your intuition, and remember you have the power to create the future you want.
That's right. And never underestimate the power of curiosity. Keep exploring. Keep asking questions. And never stop searching for new knowledge, new understanding. Who knows what amazing discoveries are waiting out there.
Well said. And on that note, we're going to wrap up our deep dive into the world of ancient prediction systems. Thanks for joining us on this journey through time and thought. Until next time, keep exploring. And remember, the future is yours to shape.